from starting as a cloud engineer, then switching to even NFTs in security as well. He has worked for Palo Alto Networks, which became famous because they are the competitor of CrowdStrike. And now in AI, in the world of LLMs, he works as a prompt engineer. How do you learn new skills that fast?
It's energy. It's energy. It's not super easy, but I think anyone can do it if you have an interest. Yeah. You can start making the right connections to then at that point get hired. It's crazy. This AI craze is insane. When you're talking about AI, you're talking about new things that people never dreamed were possible. You can build a machine, once again, in 10 to 15 minutes that does that for you. These are what are low-skilled knowledge worker jobs that used to previously exist. And prompt engineering is not just typing things into ChatGPT, right? It's understanding software engineering at a deeper level.
And chaining them together to make the best product. Prompt engineering is considered one of the most hyped job of Silicon Valley. With the salary of $300K at Google, many people on Twitter backfired it by saying this career is very short-lived. In 1 to 2 years, this career will be over because LLMs will become so good one day that you don't need to prompt them to master it. But today we'll be countering this question. But one technology is definitely long-lived for next few years, that is NVIDIA, because LLMs are being used for inference now. And to make use of that future, I'll recommend you to check out the investing portfolio and the calendar on Moomoo. So Moomoo is the stock portfolio app that I've been using for years now because it started in Palo Alto, just like Hari has experience in Palo Alto Networks from the same city. And this app is game changing because it has the calendar of investing, which is one of my favorite features. And VmWare, there are 58% of the whole population having some sort of stock portfolio, and Moomoo as an app has 20 million users worldwide. So don't stay behind the journey of AI investment. Invest right now with Moomoo with the link in description below and get 15 free stocks or 8.1% APY. So hello everyone, today we have Hari here, a prompt engineer in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley. He has hopped career multiple times from starting as a cloud engineer, then switching to even NFTs in security as well. He has worked for Palo Alto Networks, which became famous because they are the competitor of CrowdStrike. And now in AI, in the world of LLMs, he works as a prompt engineer. And today we will get to know what is this new field called prompt engineering, how you become a prompt engineer, what they do, and the future of this field. So hi Hari, can you please introduce yourself?
Of course. Hey, I think you did an amazing job. How's it going? My name's Hari Masoor. I am currently a prompt engineer. I got my start over here in Atlanta, where we're at right now at Georgia Tech, and worked for an amazing company called VmWare that took me to Washington, D.C., LA, San Diego, and then San Jose, where I'm at now. After that, I worked at Palo Alto Networks, and then I worked in the crypto space for a company called QuickNode, and we went from Series A to Series B, and now I do consulting as a prompt engineer with InfoVision and Verizon.
Pretty good. So let's start with how you are able to hop in your career so fast. Like, a normal engineer segues their career, let's say cloud engineering, to maybe something related to software engineering. But it's really hard to switch into AI, especially that fast, without even a master's degree. And you just have an undergrad so far, right?
That's right. Yeah. I start my master's next month, the online masters of CS over at Georgia Tech. So I'm super excited. I still get to get that awesome top 10 program experience while getting to live in Silicon Valley where all the crazy energy is going on. So
how do you manage to switch? Can you share what's the motivation behind the switch, and how do you keep hopping? How do you learn new skills that fast?
It's energy. It's energy. It's if you're really interested, people around you will notice and they'll want to give you an opportunity, right? At each one of these points in my career, I've just been obsessed with whatever it is that I wanted to learn. When I made that initial jump from VmWare to Palo Alto Networks, I really got into cybersecurity, and then obviously with the whole Bitcoin rally in 2021, 2022, it's all anyone was talking about. So you get in, you start coding and building NFTs, and suddenly you get that opportunity with AI because the learning curve is quite a lot. For me personally, just to learn all the frameworks and really get to the depth that I wanted to get, I did a coding boot camp. I did a year's worth of freelance contracts to learn and really implement AI agents in Python, JavaScript for many different customers and many different use cases. And over time, you just learn, right? So it's not super easy, but I think anyone can do it if you have an interest. Yeah.
So walk us through the process. So let's say you got bored working at VmWare in the cloud infrastructure team.
Yeah.
So how were you feeling that time, and how you started step by step to switch into, let's say, NFTs or blockchain, and then we will talk later about LLMs.
Absolutely, yeah. So first of all, shout out to VmWare. It's always a home for me. It launched my career and really got me interested in technology. At the time that I really got into crypto and Web3, I started going to all of the different conferences, right? And honestly, if you're at a developer level, or even if you're not at a developer level, many of these emerging industries, they start throwing these conferences and they give you free entry. And when you go to these hackathons or conferences, depending on what kind of really career path you want, people start to take notice, right? You go to the booths, you exchange numbers, you're like, oh, I saw that guy at the 3 other things, and suddenly you become a known entity. So once you're a known entity in any of these new emerging industries, because it is new, you can start making the right connections to then at that point get hired.
Yeah. So you were very active in the Valley, and in Silicon Valley, there's event every single day.
Every single day, yeah.
Sometimes I get so shocked. Currently, after AI boom, Silicon Valley has changed. San Francisco is so vibrant. You see a lot of people walking through the streets because it flipped. People say that San Francisco had flipped after COVID.
Yeah.
You barely see anyone other than homeless people. That was the biggest complaint. Offices were empty, but that is changing now. Right?
It's insane. It's insane. So when I moved up, I'm trying to even remember when now. It was either 2020 or 2021. There wasn't as much energy as I was expecting. Ever since October of last year, it's crazy. This AI craze is insane. You will just go out to any coffee shop and you'll find yourself in a 5-hour rabbit hole with five strangers that just want to talk about AI in the future and technology and what new frameworks you're using, what new tools you're using, what would be cool to build. It's honestly like nothing I've ever experienced in any of the other cities I've worked at, and I think it really is a testament to just how transformative this technology is. And I think because everyone understands that, and there's some statistic like, I don't know, 97% of all AI startups are actually based in San Francisco and the Valley. It really adds to really building that energy. So.
Yeah. Now coming back to your VmWare experience, so there's always the curves in a company. Let's say you're very excited about, let's say, cloud, and when you hit the peak learning point, then you think that you're not learning anymore, then you plan to switch. So that was also the reason how you got bored in cloud and why you didn't see future there.
Yeah, and once again, man, I love VmWare. I think there's a great future. They got acquired by Broadcom for about $70 billion. The reason that I personally thought it was time for a change was I'd done many different roles within the company across different verticals, right? So I was a go-to-market engineer for state, local, and education, go-to-market engineer for healthcare. I was a client executive for commercial and enterprise, and the technology itself it's cloud technologies, which, the great hyperscalers are cloud technologies. It's really exciting stuff, but, when something like AI comes around, when you're talking cloud technologies, you're talking about operational efficiencies. When you're talking about AI, you're talking about new things that people never dreamed were possible, right? And if you want to talk about, the industries that I work with, like state, local, and education, you could use AI technology to identify school shooters and hopefully prevent against that. When you're talking about healthcare, you can use AI and computer vision to identify tumors before really any doctors do, with more accuracy. And we're getting to that point. If we're not there now, it's very clear the way this technology is going, we will be in 5 years. So that level of excitement and seeing that just being there, right? And it's not just me, right? It's everyone. Everyone sees it. It's just something that makes you want to, frankly, go back to school, learn, get hands in code, start building, play with different multimodal AI models, right? And just see for yourself what the possibilities are.
Brilliant. Yeah. So now let's getting into your segue into the world of LLMs and prompt engineering. So how did you figure out that prompt engineering is something you like, and what were the steps you took to get into the field?
Yeah, so prompt engineering, I knew that I liked it as soon as I got my hands on ChatGPT. That's essentially what you're doing. Even if you take the API out of it and you don't code, you're prompting ChatGPT to give you answers. And one of the things I was doing is I was building an iOS app. At the time, I hadn't done any coding bootcamp. I was hands-off code. And I started to see, hey, I'm learning really, really fast. I have pretty much a buddy that can tell me exactly what I need to build whatever I want. So after that, when I started getting really good at building these prompts, I started thinking, all right, let me start hitting some of these APIs, the Google Gemini API, the OpenAI API, and let's start to build actual applications. And then that was really fun. You start building an application where you start identifying individual sentences or words in, a song or a speech file, or you build an app that starts identifying individual actions in a video, and then you start seeing the power of these things, and you start thinking, how can I adapt this to, what someone would have to do for their job? And that's where you see the power of it, right? So you think of a security guard, especially ones that have to monitor a lot of things that are in front of screens, right? If you use AI for that, these are simple projects that anyone that's new to prompt engineering can frankly spin this up in 15, 20 minutes. You can develop a machine that can do object identification with insanely amazing accuracy, right? Or, if you have to go through a bunch of audio recordings and start transcribing things, you can build a machine, once again, in 10 to 15 minutes that does that for you. These are what are low-skilled knowledge worker jobs that used to previously exist. And now with the advent of AI, you can do both of those things, right? And that goes beyond just that, but suddenly you think of what are the most immediate applications. And you're thinking of really any job that was initially offshored. So I believe even before LLMs came out, people were trying to figure out, from a customer service perspective, let's use different workflows to automate that. Now we have LLMs, and almost all tier 1 customer service can be automated with AIs and LLMs, right? And that goes into other areas of the enterprise as well. So when you start thinking of, the sales and marketing machine, when you think of sales development reps, you're thinking of looking at Excel spreadsheets full of emails and then having to go through their LinkedIns to grab all the individual information and craft custom emails to each person in your campaign. Well, with the LinkedIn API and with the LLM and everything that we have available to us today, this is something we can easily automate with prompt engineering. So that's what we're really starting to see in the industry right now, prompt engineering, and it's starting to scale, and it seems like every enterprise is really looking at it very seriously.
Impressive. So the goal is to replace the jobs of customer representatives, like sales representatives, and like whatever the jobs which are not technical, which don't require you to think 10x before you speak, can be replaced. Like, sales is a repetitive job. Customer facing are a repetitive job. They have the same formula. So we can replace those jobs, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah. At a low level, right? Like, high level sales guys, that would be the most difficult thing to replace, right? If you have to send a single email that has to make or break your company's quarterly earnings report, you always want a human in that seat, right? So these are all, entry level or offshore positions that I think we'll start seeing these tools be used. And then for the guys, the more tenured professionals, they'll act more as co-pilots, right? So when you're talking about customer support escalations, you can't really replace those people. They know way too much about the process and how to work with customers. So they'll have one of these chatbots as their assistant to help them. When you talk about, account executives that have been working their accounts for a decade, they'll have their chatbot where they can pull up any reports or information or past contracts that they need to see. So I do think that this will start affecting the greener employees as well as more offshore or lower skilled positions.
Got it. And a good example is we all have heard what happened to Chevrolet. So Chevrolet had a chatbot based on LLMs, and they talk to customers and they start the conversation. For example, when I was buying this hat, the person told me that, hey, this hat is completely made in the US, and it's like made with highly paid skilled workers and handmade, and it's not made with slave labor in China or anywhere. That's what they told me, and I was like, okay, so I am putting money in a small business, and that's how chatbots can start the conversations as well. But with Chevrolet, what happened, like someone did prompt injection and made Chevrolet to give a free car to them.
Yeah.
So there are risks involved in this field as well, right?
Yeah, so there's massive risks, and I think that's why at a Fortune 500 level, we haven't actually seen a consumer-facing chatbot deployed at scale yet. The only one that I can think of that's getting there, this was really only a week or two ago, where Amazon Rufus left their, very, very restricted pilot to go out to more people. But, now Amazon, your shopping experience can be done in a chatbot, which is still in beta, right? And I think the reason that a lot of these things are in beta is because red teaming these LLMs is new, and there isn't really a proven company out there that can do it yet. There's a lot of startups, but the whole space of LLM security is new, and what processes have to go into putting the guardrails in the prompt, putting guardrails outside of the node that actually hits the LLM, ensuring with 100% accuracy that you don't get put in a position where you owe someone a car for free with a legal document to go along with it. That is new, and it's a completely new flavor of security, and I think it will be tackled by a lot of these new startups that are popping up.
Like security companies which are like popping in AI.
Yeah.
So can you share from engineering point of view, how do you engineer the best chatbot system for sales representative? What skills you use step by step?
Yeah, so the sales representatives, let's talk about the sales development reps. What we would do in that use case is we would look at all of their different tasks, right? So you as say you're presenting this chatbot to someone that would use it, which would be a chief marketing officer, a account executive that's trying to build leads up. They're using it, they see a chatbot, and then we look at the tasks of what a sales development representative would do. And these tasks are importing things into Salesforce, so accounts into Salesforce, generating new leads, right? It's generating custom emails. It's creating new marketing campaigns, right? So when you're at a higher level, so an account executive or a marketing professional, and you want to get one of these things done, you would just simply type in the chatbot, find me new leads for my new oil company, right? And then that'll hit a back-end database that will gather all of the leads for this oil company, and then it'll look at the LinkedIn for all of them, and then it will use AI to generate custom emails, and then it'll send it out. So from a technical perspective, how that works is when you build the code behind the scenes, it's a lot more than just a prompt, right? What you get is each of those are 4 individual tasks, right? So it's find the leads, right? And there's underlying services that do that. You have to hit the database. There's go to their LinkedIn and gather their personal information, right? There's send an email, right? And then there's, put a meeting calendar on their invite, right? So outside of the underlying services of the LinkedIn API and the GCal API and the database that has all these things, you will take these 4 tasks that are needed, put it into a database, and then you'll have the AI, or put it into a dictionary, and then you'll have the AI individually order and pull out each of these tasks that are necessary and execute on it, right? So it'll have the knowledge to know what tasks are available for it, and then it'll be able to pull these 4 tasks out of its task bucket of 20 or 30 tasks that, let's say, a sales development rep can do, and it will execute these things so that you get the final result.
Is it same as creating an agent?
Yeah, so an agent's another word for that, and I think people use the word agent to describe a lot of different things. So I think from a technical perspective, people use the word agent to describe any kind of code that has one LLM call and then another LLM call, and as many different LLM calls down that chain that are wrapped together and automated through either Python or YAML. But then from a business perspective, an agent is used to describe effectively using a machine to replace or augment the work of a knowledge worker, right? So both of these, they don't conflict with each other, but depending on who you ask, and their knowledge and what layer of the stack they're at, that's kind of how I've heard it defined. But yeah, that would be an agent in both those senses.
Got it. So both are kind of similar. Now, the future is of agents, which is, I think as per the OpenAI report, we are at like level 2 for LLMs, but this is the level 3 as per the metrics defined by OpenAI in terms of AGI we are reaching for, right? So that like Sam Altman in his paper defined level 3 would be creating agents successfully. That's level 3. So we are reaching that level now.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, make no mistake, like it's out there, right? And what you need to create the agents, you need someone that knows how to code to tie all these things together. But the individual task, if you're able to break things down to individual tasks, I think the choke of this is going to be, what is the baseline most difficult task that's able to be solved by a single LLM call, right? Because you can chain together as many as you want. And a good example of that, right, is if you look at highly skilled knowledge workers, we use the example of trying to send a very, very detailed email that you need to somehow, get out so that you can make your company look good before the quarterly earnings report comes out. Right now, AI is not there, right? So right now, you can't automate someone whose job it is to make these really big business deals, right? So, but, it is at the point where it can do everything that we talked about when we talked about that sales development rep agent. So,
got it. So if let's say a CEO of X company is sending an email to Y company, for example, let's say Tesla wants to send an email to Meta, they want to gather their, let's say sales report, A, B, and C, collect that information and get in an email. It's not possible with LLMs, but with agents, we can combine and do that.
Exactly, yeah.
But the argument for you is that in Silicon Valley, there is a term that you can never blame the user for bad prompt. We need to give the perfectly best solution by understanding the customer. So the point I'm trying to make is that people say that prompt engineering will die one day because these LLMs will become so good that they will just understand you automatically and they will get the job done for you. Do you think that this job is temporary? Is there an end to that job or it's long-lived?
Yeah, so I would say if prompt engineering is looked at as someone that just, types things into ChatGPT, I would say that's short-lived, right? But I think what the roles and responsibilities of a prompt engineer are, it's effectively, it's a software engineer that knows AI, right? And that still involves a lot of code, right? Like if you want to do anything from a full stack perspective, you're going to need to know JavaScript, TypeScript. If you want to do anything from, cutting edge libraries that are released, you're going to need to know Python. If you're going to want to do stuff from automation perspective, you're going to need to know YAML. If you're going to want to do anything that you want to host in the cloud, you're going to need to know AWS, Azure, or GCP. I know you're an iOS developer. If you want to, automate your job, I don't think it's possible. You're going to need to create an agent that knows Swift or Objective-C, that understands how to navigate through the Xcode UI, that understands all of the different iPhone frames and storyboarding. All of these things, if we get to any level of automation, it's going to require a prompt engineer that frankly is going to need a lot of deep expertise in both software engineering and in prompting. So I think maybe it's the LinkedIn Thinkfluencer kind of shallow view of what prompt engineering is, but prompt engineering is not just typing things into ChatGPT, right? It's understanding software engineering at a deeper level.
And chaining them together to make the best product.
Exactly.
So now let's learn how you gain the skills, like, working in one industry. You said that you gain the skills by going to boot camps, but can you share the core skills needed to be a prompt engineer?
Yeah. There's a high level of interest required. The reason I say that is if you start adding tools to your tool belt from a software engineering perspective, that's great. That's always super satisfying. Working to get the most specific and important and successful prompt is a labor of love. And what you'll find is you'll start building these insane projects that are masterpieces from a software engineering perspective that you don't even know you can code that amazingly or get to do it. And then you'll find that individual LLM call, the prompt in it, isn't doing what you're doing. And you'll find that the actual duration of time that you spend on a project can start to be more in these individual LLM prompts. So that can be frustrating for a lot of people, especially traditional software engineers, where, you know, when you hard code anything, it's black and white what the output's going to be. When you're trying to literally talk to AI, you get a different response every time. So you have to be very specific with your prompts. There's a lot of different frameworks. So there's different ways of talking to it that sometimes work and sometimes don't, right? So there's a chain of thought. There's making it reread the query. There's a React framework as well, not the front end thing, but it's reason plus act. But sometimes things that make it work are simply just putting things in all caps, right? And there's these little nuances that, as much as you want to like study it and put like a very specific framework on how to get a good prompt, it's a lot of trial and error still at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Every new field starts with trial and error until you actually map out the rules to, make it happen.
Yeah.
So because it's in early stage right now.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your goal to enter in AI was to create the future. For example, preventing shootings and mass shootings, someone entering the school, and for example, the Trump shooting that happened. If we can use AI with cameras and analyze that in advance and alert it, because people couldn't see that someone is. People could see that someone is on the roof when that guy came to shoot Trump. But they didn't listen to a human being, the Secret Service. But if the AI had notified them someone is entering the space, it could have been better.
If we had a robust AI model that had computer vision, that could understand with object detection who might possibly have a gun, or really even who might possibly be suspicious, right? In that rally, like, if we're put in situations like that where we need to, augment what's possible from humans, or catch things that a human might not be able to through error, I think that's a perfect example, right? Like, how could if there were a bunch of cameras there that had computer vision capabilities, that was able to have object detection and was set to detect suspicious behavior, how could we not have caught that? And that is a future, right? That could have been prevented, along with all the other things that we were talking about in healthcare, with cancer detection early on, or taking the shooting use case and hopefully having that kind of technology in all schools, right? So there's a lot of things.
Yeah. What else is most fascinating in the career you have entered, like LLMs, prompt engineering?
Oh man. So the way that I see it is, when I started in go-to-market engineering or software sales, we're always, and I think you work at Microsoft, right? We're all doing this where we promise our clients and customers automation. I've been doing that for 10 years, right? The thing about automation is, when you set up true automation, you end up putting more resources into building this automation pipeline than it's actually useful for, right? And you can dump more resources in it and not see any benefit. And it might have actually been a net negative, frankly, from where clients and customers were before they started the initiative. With LLMs, the ability to turn human language into code that you can then automate, like, that's literally the definition of automation, right? And it's super cool to understand that a lot of things that used to take forever, right? Like, used to require these complex UIs to set up, that used to have to be insanely specific, that if a punctuation was wrong in something you said in a ticket, it wouldn't trigger the right event. Now it's fed through an LLM, it figures out exactly what you need, and automation is enabled with almost 100% accuracy. So from my career and what we've been doing, this is the pinnacle of the promise that all the massive hyperscalers have been telling customers and clients. So that's a huge thing. And then when you look at the really transformative use cases that we talked about with shooting and cancer detection, and more of the, I would say, use cases that can really help humanity and push us forward, I think that's inspirational for anyone that's looking into technology as a whole, especially AI.
Impressive. Now, in the world of prompt engineering, which LLMs you personally think have the best future? Because you use so many LLMs. So what LLMs you think are the best? Do you also look into Wall Street Journal report, which said that Perplexity is the best, and it's Claude, then, XAI, Grok, there's so many LLMs. Like, So how do you figure out the best one to use?
So it's interesting. So we can talk about it from a user perspective, then we can talk about it from an API perspective. So I love ChatGPT just because I was, early adopter. I love it. My wife, she's a high school teacher. She loves Perplexity, and all of her students love Perplexity. So there's part of it's like what you use first. Part of it also is what your academic background, what you're using it for is, right? I have found that Claude is great for coding and getting what you need out of that. Now, from a developer perspective, I've used, so Azure OpenAI as well as OpenAI. But what I've been really impressed with is I know people don't give Google enough credit. Their Gemini 1.5 Flash is so fast, man. It's multimodal. The immediate response times. I think that's important, right? Because even if you use, for instance, Gemini 1.5 Pro is longer or ChatGPT 4 is longer, like these lag times that affect user experience it matters in two ways. One, user experience matters. The end user might have a worse experience, but also like it limits the amount of use cases you can have. If you have any real-time use cases that you want to use LLMs for, it's immediately out. Like something like using them for, self-driving if you want to compete with Tesla or something like that, right? So the fact that Google Gemini 1.5 Flash has gotten the time down so low, it's gotten the token context window to, is it 1 million, 2 million? It's
2 million now, almost.
2 million. That's, so yeah, I know Google was taking their time with it, but
nailed it.
It's wild, yeah. Because what everyone was doing, right, is they were building these RAG workflows. 2 million's huge, man. You can simplify 90% of your RAG workflows with that context window and then get an immediate result because it's, that the Flash, it's really a Flash.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like we also need to break down RAG, but before that, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
I use it a lot for putting 3-hour podcasts. I can put 3 podcasts on, let's say, LLMs and ask it to frame questions for my next podcast. And it has so big context window that no other LLMs can compete. If you give like 3-hour podcast, which is like almost like, I think 500K tokens, no other LLM can take it. And it understands all of them. It has a Google Notebook as well. It's really good for note taking right now with PDFs and all. So now, can you explain RAG versus fine-tuning and LLMs?
Sure, yeah. So retrieval augmented generation. This is interesting because I think when people initially spoke about this, it was when everyone was just using vector DBs and everyone was insanely impressed with the marriage of vector DBs and LLMs. So
vector DBs, can you break that down as well? Sorry.
Sure, yeah. So essentially when all this took off, what people were doing was they were taking knowledge-based articles, or think of it like books or magazines, anything written that was coherent, and they were essentially churning this text, think like Harry Potter, into zeros and ones, right? And what the LLM was able to do is if a user were to say something like, how did Lily Potter die, right? That is a very specific event that occurred in this long book. The LLM would be able to identify exactly where in the book it happened, pull it out, and give you all the context around it, right? So that's kind of how RAG started. And you can think of different use cases more practically from a corporate perspective is all corporations have an internal knowledge base, right? And how people look for assets right now is they say, show me the latest sales report. And then you'll start seeing, PowerPoint, Excel spreadsheets, and you got to click in, you got to see what the content is. When you enable this form of operation, you'll be able to pull out all the relevant information from that report and see it, and then also click the file if you need extra information. So that's kind of how it started. Now, when people... Oh, God.
One analogy, is it same as we can say hallucination-free chatbot? Because because it has context. It's a retrieval augmented generation. We give it a context, it becomes chatbot only for that context. It's a book, like a book you said, right? A PDF. We talk to that PDF. It's just RAG. It doesn't search in the whole data set of an LLM. So it's less hallucination, right?
That's beautiful. Yeah, you prompt it. So this is something with the LLM. You actually have to prompt it in there too, right? Because the large language model pulls information from whatever is tuned on. But if you prompt it, only use the information that is in, this specific database, then yeah, you're absolutely right. It won't do any hallucinations if you ask it a question that's outside of the scope. So in the case of Harry Potter, if I ask it, what is David Hasselhoff's middle name? It'll say, I don't know, sorry, but if you want to ask me questions about Harry Potter, I got all the information.
True.
So yeah, so that fixes hallucinations that way. And I think with RAG, what's really interesting is it's expanded now too, though, and people are building these really intricate RAG workflows using a bunch of different SQL tables, creating individual LLM calls to get information they need from the SQL table, marrying it with these embeddings, right, these vector databases as a column in the SQL table. So for developers, there's something called PG Vector, which is an extension on Postgres. And what it allows you to do is a column within your SQL table can be these Harry Potter embeddings. So that if you want to pull out individual chunks from the table, you can create that relation between, who killed Lily Potter, and then you can pull out the actual text that's associated with it.
Brilliant. So these vector databases are like, relational databases because they are like connecting from one context to the other. So that like if one page talks about Lily Potter and the last page talks about Lily Potter, it connects and puts it in a database so it's fast to search.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways of doing that, right? That what I described was one, but that's what they're getting now. Yeah, so you literally, if you ask about Lily Potter, it'll take all the information from the first book where it mentions Lily Potter. It'll take all the information from the 7th book where it mentions Lily Potter. These are millions of tokens apart, by the way, but it'll have the ability to gather all the information about Lily Potter, summarize it, and give it to you in a way that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, differences between RAG and fine-tuning, like what is better in the world of prompt engineering? How is it connected to you?
Yeah, for me, I would say I don't really have that much experience with fine-tuning. And the reason for that is I don't know that everyone always uses it, right? And I know a lot of people do when they need to get something really specific. But if you want a generalized model, which is what I've been doing, you could actually make your answers worse by fine-tuning, right? So now that's not the case if you have a very specific need. So if the specific need is get all of the information about Slytherin out of Harry Potter, and we start giving all the information that responds the right way, like Draco Malfoy was the main villain. That's a great response. Dobby was an elf, not related to Slytherin, whatever. And then we get these 50,000 points and we start fine-tuning it. You'll start having a model that's trained for that specific purpose. For me, and the projects and contracts I've been given, it's always been using generalized models and then prompting it and then building RAG workflows, which prior to the 2 million context window was a lot more intricate, but now it's becoming more simplified.
Interesting. Now, with the world of prompt engineering, how small language models will be helping you in the world of prompt engineering?
Dude, that's wild, man. That's wild. Because I think about Apple, right? Like, I still have an iPhone, I think 11 or 12. I haven't updated it. I heard that they're releasing it with the iPhone 16, right? And I think the iPhone 15 Pro has it as well. But what it'll allow you to do is you'll have a model on your phone that learns you, right? So a large language model learns everything across the internet, and you can ask generalized questions. This SLM on this new iPhone, which I'm definitely going to get, is going to learn you with every single action that you take. That's bananas.
Absolutely.
That's crazy, right? Is that insane?
It's insane.
That's crazy. So,
it's epic.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the difference, right? An SLM, at least in the way that I saw it on the Apple, what is it called? The Apple Day or WWDC? They were describing it like this is my LLM. This knows me. This is trained on me. This is trained on every single action that I do on my phone. And then whatever it can answer will go out ChatGPT. Might turn that feature off, but SLMs are definitely the future. I think the reason that it's not here yet is, I've been trying to spin up a bunch of different models on my personal laptop. 16 gigabytes of RAM. I don't know, it's an Apple M2. You can't really do much without massive compute RAM requirements. A lot of them require GPUs, your friend was telling you. But, for instance, with video language models, right? I can't run that on my personal. It just says like your system requirements won't allow you to do it. So with SLMs, it's different in that it's going to be less parameters. I do think that the iPhone 16 is going to be beefier so that they can do a lot of things and it will be good. But how can that not be the future, right?
True.
Large language models are now, in the future, we're all going to have our own personal SLM that learns from every single individual action we take. So the only constraint on that right now is how much, compute memory that you can fit on, a phone, a small device. So.
Absolutely. After that event, people are copying Apple. For example, Google already had planned Gamma, the small model of Google, but like OpenAI came with ChatGPT 4o Mini right after that event just now. And I think there's so much scope of these small language models because they can, with prompt engineering, they can connect more of the things in your phone. And that's all prompt engineering, right? On your phone. Let's say you have a photo. So a good idea could be you have a photo of, let's say you attend a class. You collect all the notes from a class in your Notes app, on the Photos app, connect all together, make a PDF, and it becomes, like a research paper as well.
That's all prompt engineering. You just connect 3 different services, feed them all through their own individual LLM calls, and you create something brand new that would normally take you like an hour to do, right? Hey, iPhone, do this new thing for me. It's crazy.
So that shows how much scope is of this field because you being a prompt engineer is creating the future, and you're gonna shape how this field is gonna become. So now, any final advice you have to all the people who want to become a prompt engineer and enter the world of AI?
Don't stop. There's so much opportunity for it. I know it takes a little bit to really get going, but stay in the code, keep coding, stay as technical as possible, mess with as many different APIs as possible, and take on freelance gig, take on paid contracts, take on as much work as you can because, you just said it, right? Like, based on what you just said, there's going to be a need for 10 times as many AI engineers or prompt engineers or whatever you want to call them to build out all of these different workflows. Like, they're all workflows, they're all agents, it's all prompt engineering. So, it's very exciting.
Yeah, if someone wants to make an agent at home as a practice project, can they do it? How would you do it if you had to start
I would go on OpenAI just because that's, they got amazing documentations. That's how everyone started. And I would just think about 2 actions that you wanted to get done with an LLM and then figure out how to time together. So the first agent that I made was recording me talking and then identifying specific words in what I talked. So what that agent looked like, microphone on, it recorded it, and then it transcribed it, and then it said, did I talk about ice cream, right? That's an agent. That's an agent.
True.
So what is that really, though? It's a for loop. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, it's basic computer science principles that allow us to do this. So I would go on OpenAI. I would think about, something that, first of all, that you thought was really complicated that you wouldn't be able to do without AI, and then just build towards it, and you realize with putting in these 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 LLM calls, this suddenly becomes very simple. And something that you thought might be a 5-day project, you'll do in like 20 minutes.
True.
Yeah.
And you can just start with Python. These APIs are so easy to use. Anyone can make a beginner level prompt engineering project easily.
Exactly.
And later it's the skills and all the terms which you mentioned. If they know those and have experience, they can become one, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hari. It was very nice talking to you. Learned a lot. I hope this podcast adds a lot of value to people watching it.
Yeah. And like and subscribe.
And follow Hari on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's how I found him. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.